Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Rowell. Alright, I got just a couple little chores that I need to get done today. A couple of them around the house, and I also need to go get a haircut. I'm getting a little fuzzy here, and actually it turns out the haircut is going to kind of be tied into one of the other things I need to do today. I need to get some laundry done, and that's kind of boring, but it's one of those things you got to do every once in a while. But I also need to update my resume for work. And when I get done from doing my haircut, I'm going to kind of tell you the whole story about what's going on there, because there are some kind of big things going on right now in my life at work, and I'm going to tell you what I can. So let's go get my haircut, and we'll pick this up in a little bit. Alright, I'm back from getting my ears lowered. I also got the first load of laundry in. And now I'm going to kind of tell you what's going on with the job. I'm going to actually kind of retell the whole thing from the beginning here, just because there's probably some of you out there that haven't been watching from the beginning, kind of pulled in later on, and maybe haven't gone in and watched the vlog from the beginning. Basically, the whole point of this vlog has been telling the story from the point where I decided that I was done working at Disney. I was going to quit my job. I was going to fix up my house. I was going to sell my house. I was going to move to Texas. I was going to find a new job, buy a new house, and go from there. And for the most part, that worked out pretty much to plan. It worked out exactly as I planned it, with the exception that I'd really kind of hoped I would have had a job within 6 months of getting to Texas. In reality, it was closer to a year, but that's just the way it worked. But other than that, everything worked out really well. I haven't been really clear about what it is I do for a living. I got to keep certain aspects of my life private, and that's definitely one of them. I have said that I'm kind of in the manufacturing industry, and I started out in this company that I work at now, and basically the management structure, the local management structure for the department I'm in, there is one supervisor who's kind of in charge of the whole department, and then there's two leads that kind of run things. And turns out there was a senior lead and a junior lead. And the senior lead, right off the bat, didn't really know what to make of me, because her mentality, she was just looking at me as a basic line operator, and she was one of those people that thought you always need to be kept busy and always be doing something. And if the line was broken, if the mechanics were working on it, she thought, okay, that's a time for you to go and find something else to do. Go and clean, go do something else. And I kind of saw things a little bit differently. And when I was working on the machine would break and something would go down, I would watch the mechanics, because I realized a lot of the things that they do, I could do if I just knew how to do it. And that ultimately would be in the best interest of the company, because if I'm on a line and it breaks and I know what to do about it, I can get it going again really quickly and reduce the amount of downtime, which keeps the production numbers up. Versus, having to call for a mechanic, have the mechanic come over there, diagnose the problem, and then fix it. It took a lot longer to do that. So initially, when the line would go down, there'd be something wrong with it. I would sit there and I would work with the mechanics and kind of watch what they were doing and ask them questions and all that. And I did that in large part because, one, I wanted to learn, and two, I actually had the opportunity to do that. See, when I was working at Disney, Disney was partially a union shop. And the mechanics, the people that worked on the floats that we drove, were union people. And one of the things I've kind of noticed over the years, that sometimes union members are really good, hardworking individuals, but a lot of times they aren't. They can be lazy, they take advantage of the situation. I know, for instance, even the most simple basic things like turning on the float at Disneyland, you had to have a mechanic to do that. And there were times where we'd go in at night to do an overnight rehearsal, practice something when the park is closed, and we'd need to have, we'd have 15, 20 people waiting to get in the floats and practice with them, and we couldn't do anything because the one mechanic that was on duty was on lunch. And so we all had to sit and wait for that person to get back. And unfortunately, I had more experiences like that with unions than than good experiences. There were a couple of the mechanics over at Disney that were good, decent people, and they were hardworking, and they weren't so, this is my job and you can't do it, and would actually allow you to help from time to time. You may recall about a year ago I did a eulogy for a friend of mine at Disney named Gary, who passed away just before that, and he was one of the good ones. I really liked him. He was my best friend over there. In fact, the day I resigned at Disney, I actually wandered all over the park looking for him because I wanted to tell him personally. The rest of the people I really couldn't care that much about, but I wanted him to know that I was finally on my way to starting a new life and all that. Well, anyway, that's one of the things I like about the place I'm working at now is it isn't a union shop, and the mechanics see the wisdom in teaching the operators how to do as much as they can. And in fact, you know, if they see an interest in it, they'll tell you anything you want to know. There's a few of the mechanics there who, you know, I'll be asking questions of, and they'll say, well, you want to learn something? Come with me. And they'll take me someplace and show me how something works and all that. And because of that, I've gotten to the point where I can do a lot of things. And that ultimately turned that lead around on me because she saw the wisdom of what I was doing and started not giving me as much headache when I would watch the mechanics versus going and cleaning something when the line was down, because she saw the benefit of that. And it wasn't long after that she became my biggest advocate, my biggest supporter, my biggest booster. Every move that I've made in the company since then has been because of she's been behind me, pushing me into that position, talking to management, saying, hey, you got to look at Breck on this. He can do this. The first opportunity that came to me was about 8 months or so after I started with the company. They made the decision that they wanted to create line leads. Basically, the product we make is manufactured on 8 separate lines in the department. Each one of them are basically, it's the same equipment for the most part. There's some differences, but for the most part, it's the same equipment, you know, multiple times on one on each line. And they made the decision, since these machines are really complicated and have a lot of moving parts and a lot of stuff like that, that it kind of made sense to assign one person to that line and then have that person be on that line every day. Prior to that, you'd be on a different line every day, and you know, the logic being, if you're on the same line every day, you'll kind of get to know the little quirks and personalities of the individual line you're working on, and you'll be better qualified and capable of figuring out what the problems are and fixing them quickly. And they put a lot of thought into who was going to be these line lead people. They wanted them to be the most experienced people. And at that point, I had, like, you know, 7 or 8 months of experience. I was still very, very green. Most of the people in the department, you know, almost everybody in the department had been there longer than I had. Some people years or even decades. But when the time came to pick line leads, this individual, this lead that was the one that was always supporting me, recommended me for one of the line leads, and I ended up getting the position, becoming the line lead. And they not only gave me one of the fastest machines to be the line lead on, they gave me the least reliable, most problematic machine in the department. And I spent the next 6 months on that machine and kind of systematically worked through all the problems, you know, got the mechanics together, got them to, you know, fix these problems one by one, you know, pick the worst one first, got to that one, you know, got that taken care of, moved on to the next one, moved on to the next one, moved on to the next one. By the time that first 6 months was up, my line had gone from being the worst line in the department to being the most reliable line in the department. And they said, okay, let's see if we can make lightning strike twice. So they moved me to another line, which was the next worst line. This line was actually the newest line that we had, but due to COVID, we kept having problems getting replacement parts when things would break down. So this machine just ended up being a machine that we use for parts. So if another line broke down and we needed to have parts, we take it off this machine. And so this machine had been basically scavenged down to the bones and was a little more than just a frame of what the machine originally was. Well, by the time COVID got over and the supply chain issue eased up a little bit, they decided to bring this line back up to operating order, and that was about the point we started the second round, second 6 months of line lead. And so I was given that machine to be the line lead for. And about this was about the same time that that I got my first promotion with the company, became a Tech 1. And so, you know, I got the second line lead position and the Tech 1 almost the same time, and worked on that machine for another 6 months. And by that point, after 6 months, that machine was now our most reliable machine. So I'd proved myself over and over again that, you know, I could take these machines that weren't working well and make them work well. I started knowing the machine in some cases as well as the mechanics, definitely better than any of my fellow operators or leads or even supervisors. They got to the point where they were allowing me to do some training of people, and that further allowed me to show the company what I could do. And at that point they said, okay, we need to let this guy learn anything he wants to learn. So at that point I started learning the ink process, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but we had to mix up the ink that we used to print our product with, and you had a very precise recipe you had to follow. And I got to the point where they considered me the backup ink person to the main guy, and at this point I was also sort of a backup to the mechanics, and things were going really well for me. And at about that point, the backup, the second lead, remember I told you there's a primary and a secondary lead, the secondary lead left the company. And I applied for the position, but didn't get it. But shortly after I was denied the opportunity to move forward, this primary lead started taking me under her shoulder and teaching me to be a backup lead, teaching me some of the stuff that needed to happen to be a lead. And that's gone on for a while. And then 6 months ago, the material handler left the department, went somewhere else. Prior to that, I'd had maybe, you know, a few days working with them. They wanted me to be a backup material handler too for probably a year before that happened, but they never could find the time to give me an opportunity to work with the primary material handler, and the only times they could do it were when most of the lines were down. When most of the lines were down, there wasn't really a whole lot that, you know, I could learn, because part of doing the material handler stuff is dealing with keeping the lines running. If the lines aren't running, there's not much to learn. So all of a sudden, this material handler transferred to another department. He wanted to have more regular hours. See, we were working Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays for 12-hour days. We had a family. He wanted to have more Monday through Friday jobs, so he transferred to a department that could do that. And all of a sudden, I got thrown into the material handler position. And after 2 weeks of training, I basically had to hit the ground running and kind of figure it out as I went along. And I've been doing that for the last 6 months now, and I'm told I'm doing pretty well. You know, it's a very complicated job, and you know, the boss keeps saying you're doing a great job. He says I'm about 90% of the way there in terms of being a full-on material handler, but even then it was always just considered kind of a backup position. They didn't want me to be the primary material handler because, well, they didn't think it'd be a good move for me. It wouldn't really be a significant increase in money. It probably would have been like a lateral transfer money-wise, and they knew I wanted to move forward a little bit. So I just kind of basically became the backup material handler for a little while, and still am doing that to some extent. And a couple of months ago, this lead, who's been the biggest supporter of me, came to me and kind of pulled me aside at the end of the shift one day and says, I'm transferring to another department. And you know, she wanted me to know she's she's the one, like I said, has been training me to be the backup lead. And so she wanted me to know, I think because she wanted me to take her position for her. And she also knows that she likes me from a perspective of I know the job really well. I'm really good with the technology. I'm really good with the computers. And she's gotten to the point where she can kind of confide in me, kind of consult with me, kind of get my ideas about things. And she also kind of knows that if she can tell me something in confidence, that I'll keep my mouth shut. That's sort of an important thing when you're in management. You got to be able to keep your mouth shut. You can't just, hey, I heard that, somebody tells you something and then go blab it to the whole company. They tell you stuff in confidence because they want it kept in confidence. Well, she knew that she could tell me that she was leaving the department and that I would keep it quiet. And so I was, for a couple of months there, the only, one of like 4 people in the whole company that knew it was happening. And a couple days ago, about a week ago, I started hearing that, okay, it's official. The transfer is gonna go. This person is indeed leaving the department, and they have a date now where she's gonna leave. And they made the announcement on Saturday, a couple days ago, that to the whole company that she's leaving. And so the position has now been opened up. It's on the company website, and I'm being encouraged to apply for it. I kind of look at my qualifications. I'm probably the best qualified person on my shift in my department. It's possible that some of the leads from other departments who may want to come to day shift may be better qualified. But even there, I think, I'm a known quantity to the manager. He knows who I am. He knows my work ethic. He knows that he can trust me and count on me and keep things in confidence on that. So I think I have a really good chance of doing it. And like I said, I looked online last night and noticed that the lead position has now been officially posted on the company website. So what I want to do for the rest of the day today, in addition to keeping my laundry going, is I got to update my resume and submit it so that I can be considered for this position. Like I said, after this lead person told me that she was leaving, my supervisor also came to me, and he's talked to me a number of times about it. Says he thinks I have a very strong argument for being the next person. So he's been saying, get your resume updated. I'm the only person that knew that this was happening, that was eligible to apply for it. And so I think this is going to be a good opportunity. Hopefully we're going to get this wrapped up really quick, because this lead is going to be leaving the department in the middle of October. And so I'm going to need some time to work with her to fill in some of the blanks that I have, so that when she does leave, I will be able to hit the ground running. Like I said, I know how to do a lot of the job because I've been practicing for about a year as a backup lead. It's signing things that they're done right, verifying paperwork, all that kind of stuff. There's all sorts of stuff that needs to be done. And I know how to do a lot of it, but there's still a lot for me to learn. So that's sort of what I'm going to be spending the rest of my day doing today, is getting my resume updated, getting it submitted, and getting my name in the hat so that when the time comes, they can consider me. So I'll let you know what's going on in the future, but it sounds like things are moving really quick. This is a good move for me. It's going to be a first move into management, and I think I'm ready for this. So keep me in your thoughts and prayers. This is going to be a big move for me. It's going to be a good move for me. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's the first step to even bigger things with me. So I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.